Pope Francis makes a historic address to a joint session of the U.S. Congress. A stampede kills more than 700 people outside the city of Mecca during the annual Muslim Hajj pilgrimage. And it's Ovarian Cancer Awareness Month in the United States. And we'll tell you what you need to know about this disease. Africa 54 starts right now.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Vincent Makori. This is Africa 54. Pope Francis was the star attraction on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. Thursday. Tens of thousands of people gathered on the U.S. Capitol lawn to intently watch Pope Francis deliver an address before a joint session of Congress. Francis is the first pontiff in history to deliver such an address. The Pope touched on several sensitive issues and challenges and called on Americans and the citizens of the world to summon the courage and the intelligence to resolve today's many geopolitical and economic crises. He said that it is important for people of all faith to come together to fight inequality.
In this land, the various religious denominations have greatly contributed to building and strengthening society. It is important that today, as in the past, the voice of faith continue to be heard, for it is a voice of fraternity and love, which tries to bring out the best in each person and in each society.
Well, the pontiff also spoke about America being the land of dreams, a place where historically dreams led to action and participation, which in turn led to commitment.
Here too, I think of the march which Martin Luther King led from Selma to Montgomery 50 years ago as part of the campaign to fulfill his dream of full civil and political rights for African Americans. That dream continues to inspire us all, and I am happy that America continues to be, for many, a land of dreams.
Well, Pope Francis also compassionately spoke about the refugee crisis that so many countries are facing. He said that the world must not be taken aback by the large numbers of migrants, but rather view them as real people, seeing their faces and listening to their stories so that we can respond in a humane and just way. Now, for more perspective on the Pope's address and his visit to America, I'm joined here in the studio by Father Aniedi Okure. And in Philadelphia, Father Benoit Mukombo joins us live via Skype. Father Mukombo, let me begin with you. First, your thoughts on the Pope's address to the Capitol this morning.
The thoughts of the Pope really spoke in a very broad way, and I followed him. He touched really the heart of America, and he touched the key issues that surround the world also, going from matters of justice, all based on the principle of the human person, and based on the common. He really lectured also on the common good, which has been always a problem here in America, with people thinking of speaking of the common good is minimizing the principle of individualism, and yet the common good is what binds society together. And he spoke broadly about that too, and touched immigration, how it is not only an objective issue, but it is a very subjective issue that affects him even himself. And the very nice word that he put is, most of us here, we were once also foreigners. And that was just really key to the whole thing on how people should approach it.
Yes, and now, Father Makori, you know, some of the issues he touched on are issues that people talk about, things that people are very familiar with. What is significant about the Pope addressing these issues?
I think the Pope addressing the issue takes it to, if you would, a pastoral level, that we have a moral obligation for one another. You know, the growing inequality in the world today is really, really striking. Never before have we had such inequality in the world that many people are growing extremely wealthy, while many are descending into poverty. Actually, a few are growing extremely wealthy and very many descending into poverty. And that touches also on what he talks about exclusion. One of the phenomena of modern world is that so many people are excluded from the mainstream, more specifically, main economic stream. We see people who are working full-time, sometimes husband and wife working full-time, and yet unable to meet the basic necessities of life. So the Pope is calling us as a human community to think how to resolve this issue, because it's a moral issue.
Yes. Now, Father Mukombo, we know that as the Pope continues his travels across the U.S., it is also a political season here, and some of those issues actually have been kind of echoed from political podiums. Do the politicians really care about the position of the Pope?
We still have to explore more things, to hear more things from the Pope. We are expecting him here in Philadelphia with open hearts, and the entire city has really warmed up for him. We'll listen to him and we'll welcome him, and especially as he centers everything on the person, on the human person, and the dignity of the human person. And I hope he'll also be able to touch the issue of immigration, of immigrants right now, especially the refugees, not only in Europe, but there have been masses of people, millions of people on the move all over the planet. And Africa has suffered quite a lot. So many countries in Africa which have welcomed refugees with bare means. They had to sustain them. And so all that is all based on justice, on how the bigger nations with resources, especially with resources of wars, can contribute positively to the stability of the entire continent.
Mm-hmm. Now, Father Makori, you know, same kind of line of thought. In terms of who is addressing, you know, all the millions of people listening, they feel good and they say, yes, that is it. They should be saying more of that. But in terms of practicality, you know, the people really contribute to making a change. What has to be done to really influence them?
Yeah, I think, let's stay with this country, for example. Voters have the voting power to try to get in people there who resonate with what has just been referred to, the common good. Sometimes when leaders of the church talk about distributive justice, talk about sharing your wealth, people think, oh, communism, socialism. That's not the case. Making profit and being wealthy is not a bad thing. The church has never said that. But if I'm accumulating so much money, and in the process, I'm cheating people, in the process, I'm trampling on the justice of others, the rights of others to make that money and keeping it, then that's not right. And so I think collectively, we have to remind our lawmakers, we have to remind the economic community that they have an obligation to the community from which they benefit.
Now, in a few seconds, Father Mukombo, at the end of this trip, and the Pope leaves the United States and goes away to other lands. What do you think Americans will take away from it?
This trip, I hope the Pope will touch the hearts of many people, not only Catholics, but all the American people, because the responsibility that the representative of the people have depend very much on the people themselves, because they are the people who give the vote, the people who influence the decisions in Washington. And I hope his message, as he insists on this message, will be able to transform, and his attitude himself, and will be able to transform many hearts of American people and many hearts of all the people all over the world. That's what I'm really expecting and praying for.
Well, Father Benoit Mukombo in Philadelphia and Father Vincent Makori here in the studio. We do appreciate very much your insights. And thanks a lot for joining us today, spending your time with us. Well, the Muslim world is in mourning today after more than 700 people were killed and 450 others injured after a stampede Thursday outside the city of Mecca during the annual Muslim Hajj pilgrimage. Saudi Arabian officials say the incident happened in Mina, where pilgrims throw rocks at pillars representing the devil in the final Hajj ritual before beginning the Eid al-Adha festival. Saudi Arabia Civil Defense Directorate has posted pictures showing rescue workers attending to people on stretchers, including one who appears to be trying to resuscitate a man. Multiple deadly stampedes have occurred at the Hajj during the past 25 years as huge numbers of people gathered for the 5-day event. The Hajj is required of all able-bodied Muslims once in their lifetime. This year, about 2 million people are participating. The worst disaster happened in 1990 when a stampede in Mina Tunnel killed more than 1,400 people. Stampedes in 1994, 2004, and 2006 each killed more than 200 pilgrims. Well, also in the Middle East, 2 suicide bombers attacked a mosque in Yemen's capital on Thursday, killing at least 25 people attending prayers at the start of the Eid al-Adha holiday. Now, the blasts in Sana'a hit a mosque run by the Shia Houthi group that seized control of the city a year ago. There has yet to be a claim of responsibility. The attack comes 2 days after President Abdul Rabu Mansur Hadi ended his exile and returned to Aden after pro-government forces backed by Saudi-led airstrikes pushed the Houthis back from the city. Well, we want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we covered during the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54, and check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Well, find me on Twitter at VOA Vincent Makori. Coming up, the German Chancellor calls for more help from the U.S. and other countries to tackle the Europe migrant crisis. Stay with us.
Pope Francis is coming to America. VOA follows the Pope's historic visit. From Washington, D.C., where he'll address Congress, to New York City, and on to Philadelphia. VOA's coverage of Pope Francis' historic visit to America, beginning Tuesday, September 22nd.
From Science and Technology, here's What's New.
What's new? In the Gaza Strip, to help alleviate chronic shortages, Dr. Tarek Lubani created a low-cost stethoscope using a 3D printer, an idea he got by seeing a cheap plastic toy being used by children. Lubani says a 3D printed stethoscope can be made for just $2.50.
We've tested it. We've validated it to ensure that it is actually as good as any other stethoscope that you could use.
The 3D printer deposits layers of red filament, making the parts for the stethoscope, which is then assembled by hand. Dr. Ayman Sahabani works at a hospital in Gaza.
This stethoscope that was made today, it fills a need. And now we can provide a stethoscope to each doctor.
Dr. Lubani says he hopes his 3D printed stethoscope can be made anywhere in the world where it may be needed. For VOA's What's New, I'm Martin Seacrest.
Welcome back. German Chancellor Angela Merkel says the resolution to the mass migration of people escaping violence in Syria will come with help from the United States, Russia and the Middle East. Chancellor Merkel also says she is satisfied with a new agreement with her fellow European Union leaders to give $1.1 billion to international aid agencies helping refugees at camps near their home countries.
Chancellor Merkel delivered a briefing to the German parliament Thursday on the current refugee crisis. Germany has by far accepted the largest number of refugees.
I'm satisfied with today's results, although we know that all of the conditions for a comprehensive solution to the refugee problem are not yet in place. But we have gone a necessary step forward, and that is one of many. So it was important at this council meeting to have an exchange of views to try to gain a better understanding of the matter at hand. And I must say that I saw very clear indications of us all understanding. This is a common task that we need to tackle, which is why we are going to adopt the steps just mentioned.
The agreement came following an emergency summit in Brussels that ended early Thursday. The 28 EU countries agreed on increasing aid to countries like Lebanon, Jordan and Turkey, which are hosting millions of refugees from war-torn Syria.
It is clear that the greatest tide of refugees and migrants is yet to come. Therefore, we need to correct the policy of open doors and windows. Now the focus should be on the proper protection of our external borders and on external assistance to refugees and the countries in our neighborhood.
The leaders also agreed to set up hotspots by the end of November, where EU experts can quickly register and identify people. It is unclear if the countries reached an understanding on how to cope with the thousands of asylum seekers streaming to Europe, even after interior ministers adopted a country-by-country quota plan Tuesday to disperse 120,000 migrants throughout the 28-nation bloc. Esther Guido-Ewart, VOA News, Washington.
Well, it's time for Thursday Health Report, and joining us now is Africa 54 Health correspondent Lino Mudu with news on the Millennium Development Goals. Lino.
Well, on Friday, September 25th, countries will have the opportunity to adopt a set of global goals during the United Nations General Assembly to end poverty, improve health and ensure prosperity for all as part of a new sustainable development agenda. Observers say the Millennium Development Goals achieved significant progress over the past 15 years. However, challenges such as access to new technologies and affordable medicines remain. United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon and Helen Clark, the administrator of the United Nations Development Programme, UNDP, recently spoke on the subject.
The transition from the MDGs to the SDGs presents an opportunity to unlock resources for investment in education, health, equitable growth, and sustainable production and consumption.
On access to affordable essential medicines, it has improved to treatments for some diseases, especially for those higher profile ones. But country surveys are suggesting that affordable access to essential medicines is still insufficient. The latest Ebola outbreak was a stark reminder that consistent investment is needed in research and development for treatments for the neglected diseases.
The Sustainable Development Goals are made of 17 goals and 169 targets to be met by the year 2030. Now, September is Ovarian Cancer Awareness Month here in the United States. Ovarian cancer is a disease that develops in the ovaries. This cancer in the female reproductive organ is sometimes called the silent killer because in many cases the disease is not discovered until the cancer has spread. Experts say most women with ovarian cancer have vague symptoms, and they are similar to symptoms associated with many other conditions. Symptoms of ovarian cancer include abdominal bloating, a feeling of fullness, and the urge to urinate. And the Ovarian National Alliance says almost 250,000 women worldwide are diagnosed with ovarian cancer every year. Joining us now in the studio to discuss the subject is our colleague Clara Frank, VOA TV production specialist with The Voice of America. Clara was diagnosed with ovarian cancer in 2013, and she successfully underwent treatment for the disease. She's here to share her experience. Clara, how are you?
I feel great.
You look great.
Thank you.
Listen, very often doctors say about a disease like ovarian cancer to listen to your body, listen to your body. But what do you listen to? What did you listen to, if you did?
Well, this is the problem. I mean, the list of symptoms that you just read off could also be symptoms of just getting older, entering middle age, bloating, need to urinate. There's also any sort of disruption in the menstrual period, which could also be a symptom of the beginning of menopause.
Menopause, yes.
In my case, there were a lot of widely varying symptoms that weren't necessarily interconnected, so they came from as far afield as extremely heavy joint pain, crippling joint pain, terrible problems with digestion, with acid reflux, and then the abdominal bloating. But by bloating, it's not, bloating is sort of misleading because you think about maybe the bloating that happens once a month.
Yes.
It's not that. It's an actual distension of the abdomen to the point that you look as though you are pretty far along in a pregnancy. And also the skin is very tight. So that's the kind of bloating. So
at what point did you realize that something very serious might be happening and you went to see a doctor?
I originally went to see a rheumatologist for the pain in my joints. And this is the thing. All these doctors are specialists in their own fields, but they're not trained to look at the total picture.
Yes.
So my rheumatologist said, well, you know, you've got a lot of bloating, but I don't know what that is.
Okay.
All that he could do was give me painkiller to treat the pains in my neck and in my joints. I eventually went to a gastroenterologist who, coincidentally, was a much older doctor. This was a doctor who was probably in his 80s.
Okay.
So he had more experience knowing how to look at the body in, you know, in total, not just the stomach.
Look at the big picture.
I mean, after ruling things out with an endoscopy and a colonoscopy, we knew that it wasn't some terrible problem with the stomach. And when he looked at my stomach and the distension, he had a hunch, so he sent me for a CT scan, and that's when the tumors were spotted.
Okay, and then today you look great, you feel better, you feel very, very good. So tell us what it took very quickly in terms of the treatment and even lifestyle changes.
Complete hysterectomy, followed by 6 rounds of chemotherapy, which was tailored for my specific needs by my oncologist. And then just monitoring initially once every 3 months for a blood test, now once every 6.
Now, given what you've learned through your personal experience on this cancer awareness, Ovarian Cancer Awareness Month, what do you tell women? What would you tell them?
It's a cliche, but the advice to listen to your body is very critical. One of the problems with ovarian cancer, as with any cancer that happens to an organ deep within the abdomen, is that the symptoms don't present until the cancer is very far advanced, which is what happened to me. So any sign that something is off, by all means, go to a doctor, and don't let a doctor tell you that, oh, you know, it's just the change. You're just getting older. It's just menopause. Because you know when something is wrong. I knew something was wrong. I was a little afraid, but eventually tackling it all turned out for the best.
You said an important word as well, afraid. Don't be afraid, I will add. Thank you so much, Clara, and we wish you all the best and continued well recovery. Thank you for joining us today. And that was Clara Frank. She is a member of the Africa 54 team and a survivor of ovarian cancer. We're very glad that she joined us today. That's our Africa Health Report for today. Vincent?
Well, thanks a lot, Lenore. Be sure to tune in for Lenore Madou's Health Reports every Tuesday and Thursday on Africa 54. Well, it's time now for a short break. Still to come on Africa 54. Move over flower crowns. There is new plant-based hair trend in town. We'll be right back.
If you've just joined us, I'm Mariama Diallo, and here is a quick recap of today's headlines. In Burkina Faso, after regaining power, President Michel Kafando says he will resume the oversight of the country's transition to democracy. In Nigeria, Muslims celebrate Eid al-Adha with caution over heightened security fears of terrorist attacks. We stay in Nigeria, where despite being the continent's top oil and gas producer, country turns to solar energy to beat chronic power cuts. In Uganda, opposition coalition protests the government, saying it failed to agree on a presidential candidate to challenge the incumbent. Finally, in South Africa, a new program teaches convicts coding skills to ensure job security after prison. That's all for today. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
Welcome back to Africa 54. Here's what's trending. Michael Zyla from the website GreatAmericanEclipse.com has created a remarkable animation showing the path a forthcoming lunar eclipse will take. The animation was uploaded onto social media on Tuesday, and it immediately went viral. The animation shows the appearance of the moon for each minute of the eclipse and the side of the moon that will be able to see the eclipse itself. A supermoon lunar eclipse will be visible to people in the Americas on September 27th and Western Europe and parts of Africa early on September 28th. Next up, keeping calm behind the wheel could get easier thanks to a new car seat that actively monitors a driver's physical and mental status to offer an on-the-move therapy session. The Active Wellness Seat is the world's first health monitoring car seat. It uses a biometric sensing system built into the seat lining that can detect if the driver has a drop in energy levels or is under stress, and responds with a specific massage pattern along with airflow through the seat ventilation system. The intelligent car seat could be on the market by 2020. And finally, there's a new trend sprouting up in China. Plastic flowers or greenery on a clip attached to your head. It began in mid-August on the streets of Beijing. A rose here, a sprig of something there. The more people started wearing them, the more fashionable they became. The sprout trend, dubbed #SproutCore, was growing like weeds. The origin of the trend is debatable, but with so many vegetation choices at a reasonable cost, wearers can afford to harvest an entire garden before the trend withers away for good. And that's what's trending today, Vincent.
Well, that's our show. Thanks. Good night.
Welcome to English in a Minute. A preacher teaches or preaches in a church, and a choir is a group of singers in a church. But is this idiom about religion? Let's listen.
Preaching to the choir.
I'm volunteering for the mayor's re-election campaign. She has done great things for the city.
I voted for her last time, and I'm really impressed with what she's done.
So basically, I'm preaching to the choir.
A person who is preaching to the choir is telling someone something they already believe in or agree with. Church choir singers probably already agree with what the preacher is saying because they chose that church. This idiom is not about religion, and that's English in a Minute.